Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here recording remotely today, working on getting back into the swing of things. But the topic today we're going to work on is the idea of practice, but finding a balance between quantity and quality to make sure that we're getting enough of both to see improvement, but understanding the importance of each part of that quality versus quantity discussion. So before we get into that, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company.
Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount.
And again, make sure you take advantage of that EFP20 discount. That's a great way for you to save that additional 20% and also support the podcast at the same time. Also, we would love for you to become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. I want to say thank you very much to Joe Murphy. Joe is our newest patron. We really do appreciate him coming on board. But if you're in a position where you can help us, if you see value in what we're doing, go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch, and it'll all be explained to you there. So, Don, one of the things that we see all the time is when coaches are thinking about setting up practices, is that we're in this never-ending argument with ourselves about what's more important and how to squeeze as much work into the time that we have, how to get as much stuff done with the time that we possibly have. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that quantity is important. It's important for players to get enough reps that they can, change muscle memory and create habits. But quantity without quality is a trap that a lot of players, I think, are falling into. And I think we have to have an idea and a plan in place to make sure that we're getting both, that we're getting enough work in that we can create habits, but making sure that we're getting enough good work in that those habits that we're creating are good ones.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really super good point, Tori, because I catch myself as well with the quantity piece of it. And we feel like we're in a time crunch. So it's like, yeah, we got to hurry. But if you think about it in a game, your feet are completely set. Your anticipation is right at its best to see which direction I'm going to be headed. Whereas in some of the drills, I barely just get back to the beginning, the front of the line. My feet aren't set, but I'm having to make a real quick movement to go do a backhand, and it's not really replicating what I'm going to see in a game. And that's kind of the struggle, is getting those reps, but making sure that we're still kind of simulating the reaction needed and the things that are needed in game time too. And that can be tough. And I totally understand the go-ness, but maybe we need some, like you're saying, just some pre-planning that, hey, we're going to be a little more structured with this. We're going to make it a little bit more game-like. And we'll get our reps in this other drill, over on the other side. But yeah, it can definitely be a thing for sure.
When I think you can have both, but I think, as coaches, we have to be thinking about it that way, that if a player doesn't have time to evaluate what they just did, if they made a mistake and they don't have enough time to process what that mistake was and to think about, corrections and adjustments, if they're just going through the motions without enough of an opportunity to really process what's happening, then our pace is too fast. And so, I think, you can have a situation where maybe let's say a hitting circuit where you've got 4 or 5 stations set up, where even in every one of those stations, you take a swing on a tee and you think about it a little bit. You take a swing and evaluate what you just did. Maybe you build in some tools like, our Square Cuts training discs and some other things that give you a little bit of feedback that you can look at what you just did and have some ideas of, well, this was really good. Maybe this wasn't so good. Maybe I need to work on improving this a little bit. But I think we have to understand and consciously plan into what we're doing and then train our players with that mindset that everything that they do, they should be self-evaluating. If they're not evaluating what they just did, there's no chance that they're going to correct anything that they did that was not as good as it could be. And I think that that's something that, as coaches, we have to start to be more aware of, so that we can start doing a better job of helping our players get the reps in, get the work in, but also have a mindset and create a habit where they really are thinking about what they did, what they need to do, and how they can do it better.
Yeah, I like what did we do really well with that, and what could we have done a little bit better with that? Not ever having that opportunity to process it might not be letting us grow as much as we could from that event, right?
Right. Well, and I think just in personal experience, because I know for the vast majority of my life, have always been a go, go, go person. To me, if 1 was good, 2 is better. If 2 is better, 4 is best. If 8 is best, 16 is bester.
Right.
Kind of attitude about a lot of this stuff. Now, in hindsight, I can think back to years where we were getting a lot of work in, but we were still making some of the same mistakes, or players were getting a lot of swings in, but not necessarily being able to take that practice time and show any real improvement on game day. And I think that the shortcoming or the shortfall that I had was we were getting the reps in, but if we're getting reps in just for the sake of reps and not having the evaluation time, not having the ability for players to really think through what was happening, that we were setting them up for a whole lot of disappointment later on and frustration for us as coaches. So coaches, the moral of the story today is simple. Yes, you need a high quantity of repetitions if you want kids to develop habits. But developing bad habits is something that we can be just as responsible for as creating good habits. And if we're rushing and racing and hurrying and getting into situations where the players are just going through the motions without having a chance to really evaluate what they're doing and what they need to do to make an improvement, I think we're setting ourselves up for a whole lot of heartache later on.
The magic is the perfect blend, and I think that's what you said at the very beginning, Tori. Yep. Find that perfect blend.
Especially for players when they're working on something that they're struggling with, a little bit of more time thinking and evaluating and a little bit less time doing, I think is an important way to look at it. So if I've got a player who's really been struggling with the changeup, let's say, she's had 3 or 4 games in a row where she's missed changeups by 10 feet. It's great if we throw a whole bunch of changeups at her, but changeups at her when she knows they're going to be changeups and not really making it game-like is not going to necessarily solve the problem, versus mixing in some change-ups and giving her chances to really think about what she's doing, what her approach is, what changes she needs to make, and things like that. I think that's a whole lot better solution. I understand why we fall into that trap, because I've done it myself many, many times. But I think the goal of all our discussions is to hopefully avoid making some of the same mistakes that we made.
Yep, just be conscious of it, right?
Wrap up this week's edition of Coach Prep. Please make sure you support the Anderson Bat Company. Become a patron if you can. Patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Make sure you go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog posts. So there's tons of information at fastpitchprep.com. Reach out to us via email at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. And let us know things that you're curious about, things that you want us to talk about. So for Coach Don McKinley, producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Tori saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.